we've hit a bit of a roadblock now, because to progress the game, in order to be able to delete ships when we hit them with bullets, we need a big ramp up in our knowledge. And what I've got here is a very crude diagram of how it's been going so far, with the squares being the tutorials, the challenges we've overcome, and the circles being the skills we've used to do it. So far we've had one challenge, one skill, and that's kind of how we've worked through it. But now we're at this point where we need to be able to kill ships, and there's 4 or so things we need to know to be able to do it. And to cram them all into one video just isn't practical, so I'm going to have a bit of a crash course on arrays in this video, and we'll integrate them into the game. And then in the next one we'll start looking at things like hit collision detection and so on. So we're going to, I don't know, we'll delete this and we'll use this file just to make an array. So I'm just going to do all this in the timeline. Very basic overview of arrays. There's a million explanations of them out there for you. You can also just look at them in Flash by viewing the help, which I'll show you how to do. I'm just going to stick a comment here in the first keyframe to say make an array, and we'll put a little explanation of what an array is. An array is a list of information. It's basically a big string of variables attached to each other. That's the crudest way to look at it. And to do it, we put it into a variable, so we make var, let's call it, I don't know, let's call it ARR for array. We'll tell it the type, so it's going to be an array. Because an array is a class, we need to make it a new array, just as you would with bullets and ships and so on. And that's how we make an array. If you want to examine the help file regarding an array, you can right click on the word, go to view help, and you can search through the live docs or the help files if you're in an older version, and it'll give you a very detailed explanation of what it is, what properties it has, what functions you can use. But we're just going to look at basically putting things into an array and accessing them. So we'll put some information in the array. And to do that, we're going to use the keyword push. So we're going to push some information into our array. And to do it, we access the array by typing its name, ARR, dot, and we use the function push to put information in. So I'm just going to put, I don't know, we'll put the string hello into it. So that has now got the word hello stored in the array. And to access it, we need to use the position of that piece of information. So let's trace it out. So let's trace the contents. And I'm pretty sure you can just trace the whole array by tracing the array name. Let's try that. Yeah, so that traces everything. So if we had maybe a little bit more, if we copied that, pasted it and put world, we get the contents there separated by a comma. But if we want to access a specific point in the array, say we want to just get to the first element, you can access different bits by using square brackets at the end of the array's name. So we can put square brackets here, and in there we put a number which is known as the index of what we want to find. So you might think, okay, I want the first thing in the array, so I'll put 1. Well, let's see what happens when we do that. You can see that we've got world, which kind of doesn't make any sense because we've put 1 and we've got the second element. And that's just how arrays work. They start from 0. The index starts from 0. So if we put 0 and run it, we get hello. And that's important. You've got to bear that in mind because that will cause errors along the line, along the way. When you're working with arrays, you've got to make sure you only access information that actually exists. It's not too bad in Flash. Sometimes it'll just carry on regardless. But if you're looking for something specific and the index isn't right, you're going to get errors. So that's basically how you set one up and how you access it. What we can look at also is removing elements from an array. So let's put 3 bits of information in. We just copy it again. Put something between them. We'll put hello there, world. And just to check that's in there, we'll trace the whole array out. Hello there, world. So we trace them out and then we'll delete something. So let's delete the middle element of the array. So we're going to delete the word there from this array. And to do that we can splice it. We splice the array. Or we could, well, we'll cover that later. We'll splice it. So we do arr.splice. And this takes two parameters this time. We want to splice from a certain position, and we need to tell it how many bits to splice out. So we're going to cut from the first, because we start at 0, so we don't want to start with hello, we want to start from there, which is the number 1 index. And then you put a comma and you put how many bits you want to splice. So in this case, I just want to splice 1 bit. And then I'm going to trace the contents again, so I'll just copy that. Let's try that. So you can see we first start with hello there world, and then we spliced there out of it, so we end up with just hello world. So that's one way of getting rid of stuff. I'm just going to comment that out. Instead of deleting from the middle, we're going to delete from the end, and that's basically the opposite of pushing, and it's known as popping. So we can do array.pop bracket bracket, because that just pops the last thing off the array. Test that. You can see this time around it starts as hello there world, and it ends up just being hello there because we've popped world off the end. And for now, I think that's enough with arrays. So we understand how to make one. We know the basics of putting information in and accessing it once it's there. So we can actually go back to our game now. I'm going to jump into the game. And what I want to do is when we spawn a ship here in the document class, where we add these ships to the world, I want to store them in an array. So in my document class, where we've got the variables comment, I'm going to make an array. Going to make an array here, bar ships, we'll call it, type array, and we'll set it up in the constructor. So the ships array. So we do ships equals new array, which makes a blank list that we can start populating with these ships. So every time we spawn a ship, we want to push it onto our list of ships. So add the ship to the list of ships. So we're going to do ships.push s. And what we can do here, just to check, we can trace out the length of the array. So trace the length of the array. And this is weird again, because when you trace the length, it gives you the actual number, the number you'd expect. So instead of starting from 0, it starts from 1. So if you've got 4 elements in your array, it will say 4 instead of 3, which would have been the last index, because you'd have 0, 1, 2, 3. But the length treats it as 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got to bear that in mind. We'll trace R. Oh, it's not called R, is it? It's called ships. Ships.length. So every time we spawn a ship, we're going to also trace out the length of that list. So let's save that, test it, and we spawned one ship and we get the number 1. Let's just ramp up this number of children. We'll put that to say 10. Oops, and save it. Save it, run it, check. So you can see it's traced out up to the number 9 there, and that's because our turret counts as 1 child, so it's not spawning 10 ships, it's spawning 9 ships. Close that properly. So that's the ships safely saved in an array. We also need to do the same with the bullets, but this time we have to bear in mind that bullets delete themselves after they travel off screen, so we're going to have to remove them as well. So let's go to our bullet class. We don't spawn them in the bullet cluster, do we? We spawn them in the turret. So for now, I'm going to store these in the turret class. We might eventually move them into the document class, but I'm working in the turret class here. So in the properties of the turret class here, I'm going to make a new variable called bullets, type array. Oops. And in the constructor we'll set it up. So set up the array of bullets. Bullets equals new array. So we've made a blank list there to start putting our bullets into. And here is where we spawn the bullet. So every time we spawn a bullet, we also need to add it to our list. So comment that, add the bullet to the list of bullets. And that's just bullets.push B. Now I've just had a thought, we haven't looked at skipping through this list yet, which we're going to do in the next video, so we can't actually decide when to delete these bullets. So we'll have a problem now that our bullet list will still store old bullets, and I can demonstrate that now. If we save this and just go to, I'm sorry, I'm going to just go back to my document class and delete that trace. I don't want that anymore. Delete that. And what I'm going to do is trace the amount of bullets every time I fire from the turret class. So once we've added it to the bullet list, we'll trace the length of the bullet array. So we'll trace bullets.length, and you'll see now that even though the bullets delete themselves after a time, so I really should have sped up the firing rate, we can see, well, we can't see because they're hidden. You can see there that the last bullet I shot was tracing out the length of 6, even though it was the only bullet on the screen. And that's because we can't, at the moment, with what we know, we can't access the bullet to delete it from this array, which is why we need to understand for loops. And we're going to do that in the next video. So it's one of the 3 or 4 skills we need to know before this game's going to progress. Didn't save the game file. So I'm going to leave this video there. I want you to make sure that you understand arrays, not just in terms of this game, but in general, because if you're ever going to do much programming, arrays are pretty much essential. Arrays, or linked list, or vectors, they're sometimes known as, or used as. So go and refresh your memory on that, and we'll start using them properly in the next video. I'll see you there.